Hi everyone.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Mei Yi, and I run Weekend Academy. We are an educational program where we bring professionals from different industries to show kids what are the different jobs out there so that you can see the different jobs and professions available. So if you're interested or if you feel like this is where your talents are, you can find out more. Now, Weekend Academy is now running this series called the Work in Progress series, where we also bring professionals to talk about something right now that they're working on. And today, we are really excited to have Hakim Albasrawy, who is a strategy director at Souls Energy, to come and talk about renewable energy. So, if you attended the talk last week by Prof. Azizan, he talked about how one of the big things that we need to do to help stop climate change is to reduce carbon emissions. Remember, CO2 is the greenhouse that makes the earth hotter. So renewable energy is definitely a big part of that. So Hakim has been working on renewable energy for quite a while now, and he has a very interesting story to share. So I'm really excited to have everyone here. Good morning, Sidratul. Good morning, Sujat, and all of you who are here. Please say hi to us. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, please post them on the chat box. And with that, Hakim, thanks for coming onto the series. Thanks for joining
Thanks for
us.
having me, May. I'm really excited to be here. I had a chance to catch one of your sessions last week and the one before that also, and I'm really excited to be in the company of such cool people, shipping ice cream, talking about climate change. Hi everyone, my name is Hakim, and for the next few minutes, 40 minutes, I'll be sharing a little bit about what I do and perhaps maybe inspiring you to do it. Um, so when Mei came to me, she said, Hakim, we've already explained what climate change is. Now, how you take this climate change thing and you solve it? I was like very excited because this every day, lah, Monday to Friday, this is what I do. I don't solve climate change, lah, but I sell solar. Spoiler. Before we go into climate change and how I kind of affect it, I suppose, maybe it would be good to take a snapshot of how climate change is affected by all of us and what we all can do. Now, this is from this wonderful project called Project Drawdown, drawdown.org. And what you can see on this chart is on the left-hand side, these are things that we can do and by how much they affect climate change. Okay, so this might be a little bit small. Let me blow it up for you guys. For you that are on mobile phones, you'll notice that the current sources, these are things that contribute to climate change. And the biggest contributor is electrical production or electricity production rather, food and agriculture, the industry, so when we make stuff, transportation contributes 14% to climate change, the greenhouse gases that go into the atmosphere, and there are other things. But on the right hand side, you'll notice there are these things that are called current sinks. You'll notice that the left hand side are things that contribute to climate change, and the right hand side are things that can take away all of these greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. So we call them current sinks. I'll go into more detail about that, but an easy way to picture what a sink is, there are things that pull greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. These are good things, okay? Think things like trees and mangrove forests. These are things that take the carbon out of the atmosphere. And the things that are bad are things like coal factories. These are things that by generating energy, they put carbon in the atmosphere. So we don't want that. Coal factories, not good. Trees, good. Now, with that in mind, where I'm going to focus the rest of today on is one part of the contributor to climate change via greenhouse gases. You'll notice that on the far left side, there's electricity production. I'm going to focus the rest of the talk about electricity production because you know why? 25% of what we are doing as humans to add greenhouse gases to the atmosphere comes from electricity production. So it's really important to focus on the big things, right? Because when you focus on the big things, then you can change them in a meaningful sort of way. But first, let's take a snapshot of how electricity is produced today. Well, in simple terms, if you've ever seen a bicycle little dynamo, when you cycle the bicycle, it spins the dynamo and creates a little bit of light on the bicycle. The same logic applies to how energy is generated. Usually you take, instead of cycling, instead what you do is they burn something. So they burn, in this case, in this illustration, coal, for example. They burn it and it heats up water. And when water is heated up, and you know what happens? It's like when you're boiling a kettle, you boil up the water, you'll notice steam come out of the kettle, right? And that's exactly what they use to power these turbines. The same thing that's in your bicycle, but way bigger. So this steam, it turns the turbines, and that generates the electricity. And that electricity is put through a transformer and sent to your house. So in simple terms, we burn something, we heat some water, and that creates steam that generates energy via turning these turbines really fast. So what can you burn? Well, typically, we've in the past burned coal. We still do. In Malaysia, for example, there are 4 coal-fired power plants. Now, coal is not so good for the environment because when you burn it, you'll see a lot of smoke in the air. There's a lot of CO2 in that. What's less bad than coal is gas. In Malaysia, we produce a lot of gas, and it's a primary source of fuel that we burn. The process is the same, but it's just the material that they burn is slightly different. It's gas. Now, once you burn all of this stuff, so you'll notice that there's this plant over here. They burn all this stuff. And how do they get the energy to your house? Well, they have these transformers that transmit this energy. Usually they have to really supercharge these transformers and send very high voltage energy across these transmission lines. You will definitely have seen them in Malaysia. You'll notice that when there are transmission lines, you cannot build anything under them. So if you've ever traveled near transmission lines, you'll notice there are no buildings under them. But a lot of the time, you'll notice these nurseries, where they grow plants. That's a very popular use of what happens with these large pieces of land under the transmission lines. So these transmission lines, they travel these high voltage electricity all the way to your neighborhood transformers, and they receive this energy and they reduce the voltage. They send it through these distribution lines, the ones right outside your house, that finally reduce it to a point that you can actually accept it at your house. So there's generation, high voltage, low voltage, your house. And then you can charge your iPhone or your Android phone. It's pretty cool, right? So this is something that I'm very fascinated about. How does energy get generated? Where does it go? And in Malaysia specifically, how is it used? Well, this is an illustration that shows how we divide the energy that we generate in Malaysia. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'm going to read it out to you. For commercial usage, this is for shops, for shopping malls, for offices. About 36% of all generated energy in Malaysia goes to supporting that. Yeah, and in addition to that, one of the biggest contributors or consumers of energy in Malaysia is our industrial segment. About nearly 40% consume. Nearly 40% of energy we generate is consumed by the industrial sector. This is the manufacturing. Think large plants and large factories that are taking this energy and making gloves and making cars and making solar. There you go. This is produced in industrial sizes in factories all over Malaysia. There's also some additional stuff like street lights and, you know, just the stuff that we need to use to illuminate and power up all the things that we use. And a good indicator is it's not very much that goes into this. It's only about 2%. Where I like to focus on for the rest of the presentation is your home. To power all of the homes in Malaysia, 23% of all the energy we generate goes into your house. Well, not your house, but all our houses. And that's a lot. So I'm very excited to show you a little bit more about that. Let's talk a little bit about what are the sources of this energy that go to power all these things, like your house, the manufacturing industry, businesses. Well, we talked a little bit about coal earlier, right? When you burn coal, you generate carbon, and that's bad for the environment. When you burn gas, that's another thing that's very popular in Malaysia because we have a lot of it. You generate carbon, it's bad for the environment. There are other sources that we use in Malaysia. I'm sure you've heard of wind energy. This is where you turn the turbine of the windmill and you don't have to burn something to turn that turbine. It's kind of cool, right? So it's like the bicycle paddling, but with wind instead. So you skip a step. And that's really good for the environment because you generate the energy, but you don't generate the carbon that goes with it. There's solar energy. I hope some of you have heard of solar energy because that's my industry. How solar energy works is as long as there's sun, it will power your solar panels, and some very interesting science will happen that I'll cover in a little bit, and it will generate energy. Also, zero emissions, zero carbon going into the environment. So that's really good. Energy without carbon. You might have seen pictures of these wind turbines. They're usually, they need a lot of wind, right? So the place where you have a lot of wind is usually the ocean because there's nothing blocking this wind. And they are actually really, really huge. Let me give you a sense of scale. Look at that little person on a huge turbine. And these are usually very far offshore. And the energy generated from them is transmitted via undersea cable to the closest distribution center on land. And yeah, it's just pretty amazing. I would say I've not seen this in person, but one day I hope to. I think they are building some in the east coast of Malaysia where it's really windy. Here's a cute little Panda-shaped solar power farm. Only in China, yeah? China has built one of these and it's really, really huge. I believe they're building another 99 more because they want to have 100 solar farms in the shape of pandas. Now you can do that in China because China has a lot of space, right? And while these do not generate any carbon as they generate the energy, or do not release any carbon as they generate the energy, one of the challenging things about large solar farms is you have to clear a lot of land. And this land, well, it needs to be pretty flat because if it's not flat, what's going to happen is you're going to have very unstable looking solar installations. And that's what it kind of looks like for if you zoom into that Panda solar farm. You need to create these structures, you put them in the ground, and then you put the solar on these structures because the solar doesn't just lie on the ground, right? And when you clear a lot of land, that means for countries like ours, where we don't have so much land as China, it's very difficult because you have to trade off. So maybe you put solar farm, or maybe you put a farm. But because of wonderful innovation that people have come up and thought about and said, you know what? Why don't we put both of them? So a good marriage of this is to have a solar farm with a traditional farm that has goats and cows and grazing animals. Because guess what? If you build the solar farm where there's a lot of grass, the grass will actually hamper the solar panels because they need to be cut by people. Now you get goats to cut the grass, which is like so good, right? Solar, you get your energy, and then you get goat's milk also. Another innovation that has come up when it comes to large scale solar, that's for farms, is hey, if we need to clear out land because we need to make it flat, what about we put it on the water? And people have started doing that. Solar on the water is really good because the water is all flat. Number one bonus. Number two bonus is the water, it cools the solar panels because the solar panels are in areas where constantly they are irradiated by the light of the sun, and that increases their temperature. Now, funny thing, if solar panels get too hot, they don't perform so well. This is why it's really good to have them in cooler areas. So bonus there. So we've heard about how we generate energy, how we do wind, how we do solar. Now let me tell you a little bit about the area of solar that I participate in. I get involved. Oh, actually, before that, let me tell you about cost, because cost is one really important part of generating energy. Let's say you charge your phone today, turn on you turn on the switch and you say, okay, I'm going to leave my phone for the next 30 minutes to half an hour to 3 hours to charge my phone. You don't actually choose, right, what source of energy is charging your phone. You just know that TNB will give you the cheapest source of energy. And around the world, different sources cost different amounts of energy. That's just a snapshot of how much energy costs. You'll notice that large scale solar, it costs far less than solar on your home. But it's cheaper even than coal or gas. Maybe not as cheap as wind. Why is this? Well, there's a few reasons. One of them becoming, once you install these solar panels, they last for a long time, 25 years at least. And once you have purchased a lot of solar, the price of solar gets reduced. But when it comes to things like coal and gas, the more you purchase, the less of it there is. That's why now renewable energy is far cheaper than traditional fossil fuels. And that's a good thing for the world because we don't want fossil fuels. We want to reduce them, reduce the impact on climate. But one of the good things about solar on your home, despite the fact that it's a little bit more expensive, is if you install it, you can reduce your TNB bill to almost zero. In some cases, even zero. And why is this important? Well, the history of solar over the last 10 years has been a very interesting one. Because countries like Germany and China have participated very heavily in the industry. Germany has committed to buy a lot of solar, and China has committed to make a lot of solar. For every 3 solar panels that are made, 2 are made out of China. They have drastically reduced the price. As you can see here, with the consumption, so on the left-hand side, you'll see the panels purchased, they go up. The price of panels goes down. That's pretty awesome, right? So as an individual, as a homeowner, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to say, hey, I want to participate in clean energy. What can I do? Well, you can buy solar because the more you buy, the cheaper it gets and more people will buy still. So that's what you call a virtuous cycle. And I think people are inventing new ways to participate. People are inventing ways such as participating in communities. So coming together and saying, hey, my roof may not be able to accommodate solar, but I want to participate. I want to put money into a community solar project. And that's what you see down here, where communities come together and they put solar in areas that are owned by the community. So exciting, right? So I've been talking about solar and solar and solar, but what is this solar? How does it work? What's the magic behind it? Well, there's no magic. It's actually a really old technology. It's like about 60 years old. And over the last 10 years, the price has gone down to 10% of it, what it was. So it's quite amazing. It's this really old technology that quite recently has seen a lot of excitement. And how it works is when the sun shines or irradiates, that's what we use the word irradiate, when it shines onto a solar panel, the protons in those sun rays, they excite the solar panel, and there's this layer on the solar panel that when it's excited, it generates energy. That's amazing, right? And all of this energy generated, it's sent to via technical term here, there's two kinds of current. One is AC and one is DC. And DC is direct current. So it sends this via direct current to what we call an inverter. And this inverter, it switches it and it prepares this energy for usage in your home as a AC or alternating current. And this can be used in your home without blowing up your iPhones or Android phones. And once it's sent to this inverter, it can actually be sent back to the grid even. So you have, if you don't have solar, you have a meter that allows you to receive energy from the grid, from TNB. But when you install solar, you get a special meter that allows you to return energy to the grid. So it's give as well as receive. So you can give energy in the day when you generate it, and you can receive energy at night when there's no solar power. How awesome is that? So a balanced situation. Now, I've been talking and talking and talking. I want to see, are there any questions out there from anybody listening? Or has everybody fallen asleep? Oh, that's an important question. There are a lot of different kinds of renewable energy all over the world. A few that I've mentioned. In addition to the few that I've mentioned, I would say that there are wave energy. So same concept as the word escapes me for the moment, as dams, hydro energy. So it's the same concept. Wave energy and hydro energy, what it uses is water to turn the turbines and generate energy. In some parts of Malaysia, where we have a little bit of hot springs, there is geothermal energy, where we use the steam from the energy of the earth to power those, to turn those turbines. So it's all about turning turbines, right? Well, in solar case, it's not, but just about every other source of energy is about turning those turbines and generating electricity. Any other questions? So that's a tough one, but I think the answer that everybody is thinking about, will renewable energy stop global warming? The answer to that is no. The idea of stopping global warming is about a few different things, chief of which are we need to take away greenhouse gases from our atmosphere. And even if we do, the scientists actually don't know, will it stop or reverse the effects of global warming? But what we do know, what scientists do know, I'm not a scientist myself, but what scientists say is if we do not reduce to zero our putting bad things in the atmosphere, putting greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, we are going to break the earth. So it's not going to stop global warming, but it's going to stop it from getting worse. I hope that answers the question with a little bit of cheerfulness. Any other questions? So I think for that reason, which is we need to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that we're putting into the atmosphere because we generate energy. So we need to generate energy that doesn't put greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And I believe on an individual level, why should we participate? I think when you do a good thing and people see you do a good thing, they will follow too. So it's not about one group of people only doing, it's not about just the government solving global warming. It's not about corporate solving global warming. I think it's about everybody coming together, pitching in and participating to do their little bit. And that's, I believe, why we need solar energy on our houses. I'll take one last question, then, okay. So think about it this way. Imagine the sun is sending energy to the earth. There's so much energy. Only about 20% of the energy is converted via solar panels to electricity that goes to your house. Only 20%. So what happens is if the solar panels are at any time, shaded, so let's say it's a cloudy day, what's going to happen is they are still going to generate energy. But the amount of energy will go down. And just how much it goes down? Well, it depends on how much shading happens. But I can safely say in Malaysia, we have about 4.5 hours of irradiation, of sunlight. And that's really awesome because most of the year, we get a ton of energy from the sun. And some parts of the year, like the rainy season at the end of the year, well, that goes down a little bit, but you're still generating energy. The sun is still there, by the way. I will move on and take more questions a little later. Talking about energy generation, this is kind of how it looks, how we set it up. This is one of our installers setting up solar panels on the home. And I want to tell you the story of how a customer goes to the company, comes to our company and says, hey, I want to install solar. And what do they go through? It's a really, really quick process. It's a really 5-step process. The first thing that happens is, like you guys, somebody explains to them, how does solar work? I'm going to do that today. Then we need to check to make sure their roof is suitable. There are no leaks in the roof. Their roof is not shaded by a tree. Or maybe they're shaded by a building. So let's say there's a building close by, and we advise customers to say, hey, maybe you cannot go solar. So it's not for everybody. But if your roof is good and your bill is good, meaning to say if your bill is large enough, if it's too small, it's not going to be worth it to install solar. We help them apply for licenses with the government. So TNB, it's not the government, but TNB and the government come together and say, we recognize that we are going to we are going to trade energy with you guys when it's sunny and trade it back when it's at night, for example. Now, a lot of customers, they say, hey, solar is a bit expensive. Can you match us up to loans? We do. We work with banks. That's really my area in the business. I work with banks to find customers a loan so they can take money from the bank and borrow it, and they can pay it back over a period of time. And once that's done, they pay us, the bank pays us even, and we install these solar. I want to show you how that looks like. Now, this video has no music, but I'm just going to tell you what's going on as you're seeing it, okay? There we go. Loading a video. So usually to install for one house, we have a team of about 5 to 6 people. One of them is a wireman. This is the person that does a lot of the electrical connections. We put solar panels in this van, and one solar panel is about 20 kg, so it's pretty heavy. Yeah? What happens is everybody will wear protective equipment because that's really important. You don't want something falling on your foot and breaking your toes. And you want to be very visible with this protective equipment. You want to wear a hat. Although you're on the roof, nothing's going to fall on your head. But when you're off the roof, hats are important. Then they start off by taking out the tiles. So they take out one tile and they will put a mounting structure that connects to the wood under the tile. Okay, once they have this mounting structure, they'll put up this railing that you can see this. Yeah, there you go. That railing. That is where the solar panels rest. So they don't rest on the tiles per se. They rest on this mounting structure, and then they tighten it. It's very much like IKEA building furniture. It's very straightforward. We just tighten it, and we make sure to close all of the roof areas that we've opened up, so there's no leaking. Leaking is our biggest enemy. That and rain, but rain translates to leak. You get where I'm coming from here. So the workers that are installing solar, a lot of them are from orang asli communities. We train about 100 orang asli and disadvantaged young people to become installers a year. Over the last 5 years, we've done this, other than the pandemic year, because we can't have people over for training. But there you go. One installation is very quick. It can happen within 1 day, at maximum 2 days if there's rain. So that's kind of what people experience when they go solar. Guess how many people have experienced this in Malaysia? I'm going to give you a moment. Think about it. Put a mental number in and lock that number in. Yep, it's a pretty high number. 5,000 people. About 5,000 homes have gone solar in Malaysia. But you have to ask the question again. How many homes are there that can go solar in Malaysia? Well, unfortunately, the number is 4,500. There are a lot of homes that could go solar, but don't. You know what this looks like? This looks like this. Why, if so many people could participate, don't they? They don't have to pay their TNB bill. Yes, it's going to cost them a little bit. Maybe it's because of that. Maybe it's because people feel like it's going to be a bit too expensive. I spend my time thinking about this question a lot. And what I do within the organization is I try and find answers to this question. And one of the answers that I have discovered is that about 25% of people that want to buy solar with us, they want to buy solar, but they want to get a loan from the bank. And it's kind of like getting a car. It's actually about the price of a car, right? So a lot of people that buy cars, they don't just buy it cash because it's an expensive purchase. If they have a bunch of savings and they spend all of their savings at one time on one vehicle, then what happens if they need to use this money in an emergency? So that's why the bank, many banks, all banks provide financing, almost all banks provide financing or loans for cars. They even provide loans for houses. I'm not sure if I've frozen. Oh no, have I frozen? Hello, hello. Okay, I'm back. Something happened, not sure what, but I'm back. So a lot of banks provide loans for cars and houses, but not for solar. And the reason is because they don't know that people are excited about it. Remember we talked about earlier, if more people are excited about something, more action will go into it. More people will create loans just for solar. Okay, so what I do is I go to the banks, I say, hey, a lot of our customers, they want to get a loan. Can you provide them something? And we work with the bank to build a special loan product that's good for solar owners. Now, this is probably pretty boring for everybody out there, but it's super important because it allows our customers to take a loan, get the solar, and pay it back over the course of the life of the solar. So they're saving money, and they get to own this solar and contribute to reducing greenhouse gases. Some people like this so much. My slides are not moving, but it's okay. Okay, some people like this so much that they said, hey, I want to work with you guys. Have you guys heard of this company called Petronas? They are an oil and gas company. Well, they are an energy company in Malaysia, one of the largest companies in Malaysia and in the world. What we do is we work with their team and their employees, and we install solar for all of their employees. And this is really good for everybody. I am not seeing any slide movement. Help. Help. Ah, I'm back and my slides are moving. Yay! Thank you, Mei. Okay. So here's the crazy thing, right? The more people install solar, the better. You know what? In addition to more people installing solar, the prices go down. It actually inspires other people to install solar. So if you have somebody with solar in your neighborhood, the chances of you installing solar, they go up by 44%. That is awesome. So yeah, doing good helps other people do good. We're coming to the end of the presentation, and I want to use this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my job. Well, my job is called strategy. Okay. It, what it means is sometimes a little bit vague, but I think of it as I look at problems and I look at opportunities and I try and turn them into real things. Much like scientists, they look at, hey, there's this problem out there because so many people have windows, but these people, they don't have solar. Maybe they live in apartment buildings, for example. What if we could invent some solar that they could put on their windows? So scientists go out and they do it, right? That's what we call product innovation. And that's really super interesting. I find it very fascinating, but I'm not a scientist. So I'm like, I can't do that. I wish I could. Like, here's another crazy invention. They're like, people have to mine rare earth materials to create solar panels. But what if we could grow these solar panels? So scientists go out and invent that, and it's really awesome. But I think you need to complement all of these great product innovations with business innovations, because you need to sell these products or else they won't get out to customers, right? And people won't use them. And that's really what I do. So I was talking about loans earlier. I think that's one aspect of asking the question, how do I get more people? We're all asking the same question. How do I get more people to use solar? The scientists, they do it by inventing new kinds of solar and more efficient kinds of solar, cheaper solar. On my side, I guess I'm a business scientist. And what I do is I invent more ways to get people to be able to access this solar when they purchase it. Another way, we talked about this very briefly earlier. We said community solar. What if the community, so if in your taman, in your area, people could come together and say, I want solar, and I want to work together with people in my area to get this solar at a cheaper price. That's what you call community solar. So these are the types of innovations that I come up with. So what's one thing that you can do today? I never asked myself this question, really. I've always sort of, there was a time in the past, I used to be involved in inventing the product side of things. I used to build apps for your mobile phone. One of these apps that I used to build was for a lobster farm. Can you imagine, like fish farm, prawn farm, lobster farm? And this app that I invented helped the farm capture what was going on the farm, so they could see, is everything growing all right? Am I spending too much? And before that, I used to be involved in a space that, think of it like a kemahiran hidup or a home room workshop. I know we have some friends from Dignity. Hi. You have workshops, right? You have sewing workshops and you have craft making workshops. I used to run a space very much like that, where people could come in and build stuff. Now, I think the more you spend time doing things, the more you will be inspired to do other things. So, my advice for you today, if you're inspired or if you think you want to participate in reducing the impact of climate change, maybe you want to get involved in renewable energy. The one thing you can do today is stay in school. And when you stay in school, you get to learn all the things that are important, and then you can use this information to explore and try things and participate. Maybe you want to be a scientist. Maybe you want to be a business person. There are these options that are available for you as long as you stay and do. Check these options out. Well, we talked about product innovation earlier. You could be involved in that. You could go to university and do a course in engineering or material science or energy science or renewable energy. So many options, awesome options. And you could invent the products that help your country reduce its carbon emissions because of energy. Or maybe you could do what I do. You could get involved in a business or a startup. You could say, I'm going to reinvent how we sell this thing. I'm going to change the group of people that we sell it to. I'm going to make it really, really affordable to people, for people to purchase. All of these are great opportunities so that people can participate. Maybe you can join the banking industry. Now, that doesn't sound like immediately an area that would help the environment, right? But you would be wrong. The banking industry is so important for anything to happen, because if the banks support it, if the financial industry or banks support it, what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of money to do the good things that need to be done. Yes, they do want to make money, but money itself is neutral, right? Money that is spent for good things results in good things. And to help people know what good things are, I think there's the opportunity for social innovation, where you could be a policymaker. These are people who write the rules down, who say, okay, if a Malaysian citizen is to buy a house in 2023, they must install solar. Make it a rule. The moment you make it a rule, everybody will have to do it, right? But the policymakers, they need to be inspired. Maybe you've heard of Greta Thunberg. She's very young, a little bit older than yourselves, I'm sure. And she's an activist. She speaks out about climate change, and she's very vocal. When people hear how she puts it, how she says, you know, we are inheriting the earth as young people, but we don't have a say in how it is treated today. People stop and they listen, and they're like, whoa, this person, she makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should invent some products that help the world. Maybe I should write some policy that helps the world. Maybe I should start a business that helps the world. Check it out. So people need inspiration. There are many things that you can do, as long as you stay in school, that would inspire others to action. I hope my sharing today has inspired you to a little bit of action. I believe we have another 15 or so minutes, keeping to time, for question and answers, that maybe I can help inspire you a little bit more. Mei Yi.
Okay, thank you, Hakim, for that presentation. That is really inspiring. So I see that there are some questions, so maybe we'll take some questions for now.
Super.
Okay.
That's one important question that we ask ourselves. So when the sun is not shining very brightly and the wind is not blowing very strongly, what happens to renewable energies? Well, the answer is this problem called intermittency. Okay, so that is where I think working together with existing sources of energy, your energies like coal and uh, gas, and in some countries, nuclear energy is good to fill in the blanks. But increasingly, there is this new technology that's being introduced. It's a bit expensive now, but the price is going lower and lower and lower. Much like solar, the more people buy it, the prices go down. It's battery technology. Now, what battery technology allows you to do is it allows you to collect energy when you're not using it, store it, and use it when collection is a little bit reduced. Let's say it's not so sunny a day, or at night for that matter. So the future of renewable energy is in working together with other sources, as well as storing this energy. Any other questions? Oh, missed that one. What happens to the... Okay, I think this is approximately the same question. What happens to the weather being cold doesn't really affect solar energy. It's just the amount of solar irradiation, meaning how much sunlight. It's not so much the temperature, but the amount of sunlight that affects. So, yes. I think we've heard that one.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions we have. I see that there are lots of people who say that being a scientist is really hard. Do you have any comments on that?
So I like to think about it as doing things that matter are difficult, and if you want to do something that's important to you, I think that's where you can get the motivation to do it. Now, I know I'm not a scientist, but it'd be cool to be one. But I always think that there's an alternative way to look at problems, right? And I've spent my life, for example, looking at ways to look at problems differently so that I can solve them. And if you feel like being a scientist may not be your thing, but you want to contribute to reducing the impact on the environment, maybe working in renewable energy could be your thing. So running the business part of the equation. That's how I would approach it. But my screen has frozen.
Oh, okay.
So I can't
we have
see
one
myself.
more question. You're fine,
All right.
though. I can see you just fine.
Okay, great. What's the other question?
Sorry, I think that question has been addressed. It's is there a minimum amount of sun needed to power the solar panels?
Oh, hi, Chanwai. So the answer to this question is there isn't a minimum amount of sun, but there is. It's always much of the presentation covers the question of price. So currently in Malaysia, we get about 4.5 hours of really good sun. What that translates to is you will generate a lot of energy during the sun hours, and the more sun you have, the faster you will generate enough money to pay back the cost of your system. So if you cut that by half, let's say you have 2 hours of good sun, it'll take twice as long to pay back the cost of your system and be twice as unfavorable to install solar. I guess in some countries, in some seasons in those countries, they have something like an average of 30 minutes to 1 hour of sun, but because their seasons change, they generate more energy during the summer seasons and less during the winter seasons. So it's all about balance and looking at that broader, how much sun do I get in a year? So the answer to this question is unequivocally, there is no minimum, but you need to you need to manage your expectations in terms of how much am I going to generate in the period that I have this up. And solar systems, they last really a long time, okay? Their warranties are usually about 25 years because they have no moving pieces, right? They just keep going and going and going. In some cases, solar systems can last up to 40 years. That's crazy. So yeah, lots of sun in that time.
Okay, I'm curious about you mentioned that you work with Petronas and then you offer solar systems to their employees. So how many of employees are there in Petronas, and how many employees have managed to install solar?
It's a super interesting number. There are anywhere between 33,000 and 40,000 employees in Petronas, depending on when you look at it and how you look at it. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm going to go with that range. And based on that range, in the last 6 months, I think we've managed to install for about 2.5% of their employees. I probably shouldn't go into specific details, but yeah, we've managed to install a lot of solar for our friends in Petronas. Now, we hope that this creates little pockets of communities that have solar that would inspire their neighbors. And I'm so excited to share that it happened. It's happening. So I sometimes get the opportunity to go and visit an installation. And when the installation is happening, oftentimes neighbors come out and they're like, "What is that?" And they're like, "We're getting some solar. It's nothing much. It's just generating our own energy." And guess what? The neighbors are like, "Oh my God, I've been looking for that. I just didn't know where to find it." And that is the power of being present. And by doing something, you do something, you inspire other people to do stuff. So stay in school and do something.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we seem to have. I do see that there are some repeated questions. So maybe just as a way to summary and close off the conversation, could you tell us what is it that solar is doing to help combat climate change?
So as a society, we are, 7 billion people to date, 34 million people in Malaysia. And as we evolve is a strong word, let's call it, as we grow, as we increase in numbers, one of the things that will be consistent is our need for energy. And with our need for energy on the increase, we need to think about how are we going to generate that energy in a sustainable way. We can't generate more energy in a way that makes people unhealthy, makes economies, or rather makes environments suffer. And the way I see it, the only way forward for generating more energy and not damaging the environment is to participate with renewable energy wherever it comes. A lot of these large-scale renewable energies may be a bit difficult for individuals to participate in, to buy, because you can't put that big of a windmill in your house. But for today, if you can and you have a home, I believe you should put solar on this home so you can be part of generating your own energy and doing it in a clean way. Yeah. So
Okay.
there you go. The more people
Thank
we
you so
have,
much.
the more energy we'll need.
Okay, thank you so much, Hakim. Thanks for sharing on how solar energy and renewable energy is such an important part of helping to move our conversation and help to address the problem on climate change. Thank you, kids, for joining us. And I just want to say that this climate change series is still ongoing. We only finished 2 parts. We have 4 more parts to go. Next week is Chinese New Year, so we are taking a break. But after that, which is on the 20th of February, we are going to have a really exciting talk by Dato' Dennis Chua. He is going to talk about electric vehicle.
Wow.
So after talking about, electricity generation, if you remember Hakim's slide, one of the biggest one also is on transportation. So if you drive around, you're actually emitting carbon, you're contributing to climate change. What are people in transportation industry doing about that? And that is really exciting, really interesting. I talked to Dr. Dennis, and he has such an interesting journey as well. So do hear how he come to do the work that he does, which is in making and designing electric vehicle in Malaysia, right here in Malaysia. So come and join us on 20th of February, 10 a.m. If you have not followed this channel yet, please follow the channel so that you get notification and you'll know when that's coming up. But it's on 20th February, 10 a.m. Join us. And that is all. Thank you so much for being here today, for joining us on a Saturday morning. I hope you have learned something useful. Any questions, keep them coming. And I will leave the links here on the chat box for the upcoming talk on 20th February. So do join us then. Thank you, kids. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. And for those celebrating Chinese New Year, happy Chinese New Year in advance. And for the rest of you, enjoy your holiday. Take care. Bye-bye.